There's a great deal of confusion these days between liberty versus license or licentiousness. When the founders created the framework of this country, they were very concerned to safeguard our God-given liberty. But that liberty was not to be abused as license. Dr. D. James Kennedy defined that phenomenon this way, quote, "License says I can do anything I want to do, anything my sinful little heart desires, and there will be no restraints whatsoever upon my conduct," end quote. Many years ago, in the shadow of the Washington Monument, Kirk Cameron interviewed me about America's godly heritage, and part of our conversation dealt with liberty versus license.
If we could bring our forefathers, our founding fathers, the people who started our country back today and bring them here to Washington, what would they think of the country that they would see before them?
Well, I mean, first of all, there's obviously tremendous technological advances that have been made, and marvels of the subway system and whatever. I mean, there's a lot of incredible things, but morally, crime-wise, spiritually, I think they would be very disappointed. They gave us liberty under law. They did not intend liberty to be perverted into license. And that's a very, very important point. Liberty...
Explain that.
Okay,
liberty under law, not liberty for license.
Liberty under law means the freedom to do what is right and to pursue the right thing. What we have now is people doing whatever they want to. Let's take an example. Right now, there are situations where religious liberty is being pitted against sexual libertine liberty, freedom to do whatever you want to sexually. And in the courts, what's happening is the sexual freedom is trumping religious freedom every time. And yet, the founders gave us religious liberty. They give us freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. I think part of the animus that we see against any kind of Christian involvement in the public arena is related to people wanting to do whatever they want to, and they don't want anybody to tell them this is wrong, and that includes God. And so, can't have the 10 Commandments on that courtroom wall. Look, it says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery."
Yeah, I'm just trying to flesh this out in my mind, but it's almost as though, instead of the amendment that says you're free to worship God in any denomination you wish, if the people today could go back, they'd like an amendment that says you can have sex with anyone or anything you want to.
Yeah. In the old days, religion was public and sex was private. And now, sex is public and religion is private. And I think some of the secularists, if they had their way, they would get to the point where you couldn't even have a cross on top of a steeple, and the religion would be, so private it would just be between your two ears. But again, the founders gave us religious freedom. They gave us freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. They did not want a national denomination, but that's a far cry from saying they wanted state-sanctioned atheism. In fact, George Washington said in his farewell address, he said, of all the habits and dispositions which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. Now, when he's talking to an audience that's about 98% Christian, he's talking to Christians. And when he's talking about religion, he's talking about Christianity. Right. The principle itself, I think, applies in general, but that's reading into Washington. The bottom line is religion was to be voluntary. It was never to be forced. They really cherished freedom of conscience. And that's a beautiful gift. And what are we having today in America? You're having a situation, for example, in the public schools, or some of the public schools, where children essentially don't have the freedom of conscience. They're not allowed to read the Bible.
Tell the story about the no Bible, but you can have a condom in first grade. What's that story?
Yeah, believe it or not, in Provincetown, Massachusetts, the school board was pushing for the idea of having condoms available throughout, even for grade schools, even for first graders. So wait, Provincetown, Massachusetts, that's where the Pilgrims wrote up the Mayflower Compact in the name of God? Amen. That was the beginning of America. In the name of God. Amen. And now they're going to give out condoms to first graders? And what would they even do with them? Make water balloons? I mean, it's disgusting that we have come from so far. It's almost as if I could say this, Satan has taken his big guns and he's just going after all these incredible places where Christ did great things. In fact, there was a great Puritan named Cotton Mather. In 1704, he wrote a book in 2 volumes called The Great Works of Christ in America. And he was talking about what Christ had done up to that point, 1704. Oh my, he would have been, marvelously pleased with what happened in the next century, the 1700s, with the independence and the Constitution.
Right. The reference to Cotton Mather because for that book, or something he said in that book?
Cotton Mather, I think, summarized American history in one sentence. He said, religion begat prosperity, and the daughter hath consumed the mother. I think part of the reason that we have
prosperity being the daughter has consumed the mother, which is religion.
Correct.
So,
it's like Deuteronomy 8.
The religion is what has produced the flower of freedom,
correct,
and health. But because we're so strong and prosperous and free,
yes,
we now think we're free to just squash the religion that gave us those freedoms.
I think that's very well put, and I think that's very true. And I think, frankly, it's a warning, though, to us, Kirk, because we can easily be arrogant. I mean, every breath we take is by the grace of Jesus Christ. Every beat of the heart is by His grace.
So let me ask you this: what can we do? What can we do to turn things around in America?
For years, my pastor was the late Dr. D. James Kennedy. And he spoke and preached on these issues. In fact, he gave a dedication to the 100th anniversary of the Plymouth Monument, the Pilgrim's Monument that you actually been at. And he said over and over and over, America's only real hope is a third great awakening. That's what we need. And we need to really pray. And God said in 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, will forgive their sins and heal their land. We really need to claim that promise. And I think there are harbingers, there are little lights here and there showing little flickerings of this potential third great awakening. One thing that I think is extremely encouraging is the homeschool movement. I mean, it's phenomenal. I remember 20 years ago, the idea of, homeschooling your child was, in some cases, it was actually criminal. I know a Rabbi Daniel Lapin, who, by the way, believes that America's Christianity is important, and its vibrancy is important for the freedom of America's Jews. He said, America's Bible Belt is the Jewish safety belt. Because he said, believe me, as you American Christians continue to lose your freedom, believe me, we'll lose our freedom too.
We've been watching a classic interview, footage hardly seen before, of Kirk Cameron interviewing me about America's Christian heritage. As to the idea of liberty versus license, here's an example that the founders were not promoting license or licentiousness when they fought for our liberty. It is a seminal quote from founding father John Adams. He once said, quote, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." End quote. What we need so desperately in America today is a genuine revival, like the kind that led to the founding of the nation in the first place. For Providence Forum, I'm Dr. Jerry Newcomb.